Hey everybody, I hope you all had a great Thanksgiving and hopefully didn't go beating each other up the next day on Black Friday. I don't normally go out shopping on Black Friday. The only exceptions I've ever typically done for that would be Barnes & Noble if I really wanted a signed copy of a book, because that's their special thing, is to have the signed editions. Or something I've always been interested in doing and never tried was going out on the Black Friday record store day. Typically, they didn't have, I'll say, as many selections that I was interested in each year for it. This time, I decided, okay, what the hell, let's give it a shot. I've got enough interest in some things that I could try it this year. So, I picked up a few things, and I'd love to share them all with you right now. The first up was the original EP from They Might Be Giants. This was called Don't Let's Start. It never rolls off the tongue right. This was the very first EP that they had ever released. I think most people had it on cassette at the time, probably. This here is number 900. Center it there, right there. Yeah, 962 out of 1,000 made. Funny enough, my store. Spin Me Round actually got a number 4 in, but of course somebody got that long before I did. I got up early, but not that early. And this came in what they referred to as a crystal clear vinyl. We will see if that's true right now. Ooh, yeah, they were not lying. That is about as crystal clear as you can get. I'm seeing directly through it right now. This was actually a pretty fun little release. I remember really enjoying the main title track. And the second one, We're the Replacements, was a very nice little nod to the band, The Replacements, who I was also a fan of. Also the last track, the famous Polka, is an instrumental, but it's a lot of fun, and a lot of people are going to inevitably compare it to Weird Al Yankovic, and for good reasons. The second one up was the solo album from everybody's favorite bassist, Geddy Lee, My Favorite Headache. This album was actually released in the year 2000, and was Geddy Lee's only solo album outside of working with Rush all of those years. And this was the first time it's ever been issued on vinyl here. And on top was the records, which are linear notes and artwork, alongside a nice, shiny, standard black vinyl. Because Geddy probably doesn't care about colored stuff. I guess I don't see why he would. And the release also comes with a neat little poster. Nice little sideways view one. Don't see many of those anymore. Usually you just get, vertical, tall ones. This one also had 2 bonus tracks that were, I believe, never issued in any release before, CD or otherwise. It was the instrumental versions of My Favorite Headache. There you go. And Home on the Strange. Both instrumental versions of those 2 songs, which I believe were the 2 most popular ones to come out of this album in the first place. I still think it was very well made. Geddy is a pretty great lyricist, and I read that he wrote the majority of these songs on bass first. He composed them that way, and then thought of the other instruments to add in later on. And if that's the case, I gotta say, well done. I was pretty impressed with it. No, it may not have had the excitement and the oomph that every Rush album out there has, but I mean, Geddy is just one man, be it greatest bassist or otherwise. And I'm really happy that this finally got the release it deserved. Well-earned place in the record store category, in my opinion. This next one is more of an obvious one, but I don't care. I was happy to get it anyway. It was the release of Phish's The Story of a Ghost. Many will remember that this album was very popular when it first came out in the late 90s. I believe it was 98. And I don't think that this album has seen a vinyl issue since that year, in fact. And, of course, not many people were buying vinyl, at least not as many at the time. So I would imagine the few issues it did have went pretty quickly and disappeared not long after that. You can see my foil stamped number here is, let's turn it that way, 4,608. Out of how many there, I'm not sure. What is it? Is it 5,000? Is it 10,000? I don't know. Either way, happy to finally have that. And we'll take a look at one of the 2 vinyls in here because, ooh boy, is this one pretty. Wow. Yeah, check that out. That is a pretty... There we go. That is a pretty splatter that we are looking at right there. Very nice. I believe the second disc is the exact same style as that one. The second one includes this here with lyrics and linear notes. We've actually got another art print from Polak, the same artist who did the cover of Junta and some other Phish artwork, so that's pretty nice to see that he's still going strong with them. And let's see. Yep, it's another very pretty red splatter. Once again, that is really something. That is a gorgeous looking record. I have not actually heard this album again in many years. Though I remember it being one of the first I had ever heard by the band also, and it made me curious enough to want to check out their other works. I was very surprised to find, the further back I went, it seemed like the more extreme talent that they would show off with their jam band approach, and then that was how I eventually got into them more, and now look at me getting every release by them every year. This next one, I'm not sure if it had as much hype behind it, but I think anyone who was a fan of the band The Replacements at least would be curious about it. Paul Westerberg here had a release of 2 albums in one set. They were called Stereo and Mono. The Stereo one was meant to be more acoustic writings and ballads and love songs and that type of music with a slightly more polished style, whereas Mono was the complete opposite approach, which Paul made under the name Grandpa Boy here. That's that picture as well, and called that one Mono. That one was supposed to be more of a callback to the raw garage sound that we remembered from the Replacements back in the day. I heard that Paul even went back to doing all of the songs from it in one take, just like he used to do in the Replacements. If you ever read Bob Mayer's book Trouble Boys, which talks all about the history of the Replacements, in it you'll remember that Paul talked about recording in the studio for the first time, and the guy behind the mic saying, like, okay, so take 2 now, and Paul saying, what are you talking about? We recorded the song, that's it, it's done. And that was their approach going forward. So it was nice to see he tried to go back to his roots there, and I think it paid off. I actually think this was one of his best, if not his best, solo outputs. So glad to see that come to vinyl as well. So outside of Record Store Day, I made 2 other I'll say little, even though they're not exactly cheap purchases in these past months. Well, past month. They're very exciting to me, and I hope that you will also find them interesting. So anyone who has ever seen the Japanese anime Fooly Cooly should be aware of the band The Pillows. They should also know that the website Right Stuff Anime released the soundtrack for the anime on vinyl here for the first time for us. Comes in a very neat little sleeve cover there with the artwork on it and the track listing back here. Just about my only issue with this track listing is actually the fact that it's missing just a couple of songs from the show itself. Anyone who remembers the anime remembers the song I Think I Can was in the final episode during a very climactic scene. It was a very important moment. I was kind of sad to see that song is not actually on this collection for some reason, which is a little strange. But what is on here is still excellent, and the Pillows were and are an excellent band. This is no exception to it. It's a great release for them. You also get a nice art print of the same cover art for the album here. And then the record itself comes on your great shiny standard black. Well worth it for any fan of the Pillows, to which this felt more like a greatest hits for them at the time, or anyone who just fondly remembers the show and wants to get more of that nostalgia back in them. And last but not least is a major reissue that I've been waiting for a long time, and I saw was selling out just as quickly as the old copies, so I knew I had to scoop it up. It was Black Sabbath's Dehumanizer. This was the third and final album of Black Sabbath to feature Ronnie James Dio. Now, I say that in quotes because anyone who considers their other band Outlet from years later, which was simply called Heaven and Hell, with the album The Devil You Know, you'll know that that was also the same lineup, and to me and many other fans is equally as deserving of being called Black Sabbath. But here we are talking all about Dehumanizer. This, as I said, was their third release. This was in 1992. This was another case where the album got a vinyl issue, but it went pretty quickly because not a lot of people were buying vinyl at the time. Same case as with the Phish album I described earlier. And so once they were gone, that was just about it, because there wasn't enough of a demand to keep pressing these things. So I was very excited to see Rhino decide to reissue this again. There's also quite a bit of bonus tracks, as was seen, I think, on a previous UK reissue. You can see them all here. They list them nice and neatly for you. I'm especially curious about these live tracks on the final disc. I'd love to hear what Neon Nights sounded like live in 1992, as Heaven and Hell itself is probably still one of my favorite albums of all time. And as someone who's getting tired of just seeing the Ozzy albums get the reissues again and again while they simply, walked right over everything else, it's great to finally see albums like this getting the attention that they deserve. This may have not been the best, I'll say, project from the Dio-fronted Black Sabbath. I think that honor, for me personally, will always go to Heaven and Hell itself. But I think that this was still more than worth checking out, and I really hope that this gives more people the opportunity to do the same, because it's worth it. It's still a great album, and it still deserves to be listened to. So thank you again, Rhino, for finally jumping on that ball. And that's it for me. What did you think? Did you all go out for Record Store Day yourself? Tell me what you picked up in the comments below. And until then, I'll see you all next time. Have a great holiday weekend.